Good afternoon again. So what we have here is a Sears and Roebuck Ted Williams Special. This rifle is similar to like a 10-22 in the way it operates, probably because of the magazine tube closer to a Marlin. It's an interesting rifle. I like the way the stock comes back and wraps around the receiver, and the takedown pin to hold the trigger group in is actually the pin that holds part of the stock together. So there's two bolts. You take that one out and that one out, and this whole stock assembly removes. You do not have to do that to get the trigger group out and access the bolt and everything for cleaning, which is really nice. So we're gonna do like a field strip on this. So first thing we want to do, magazine tube out, or the I don't know what this thing's called. I call it guide rod. Gonna confirm chamber's empty. Okay. Take a screwdriver. Again, we want to get one that adequately fits our screw head. We're going to take this screw out. Okay, now this one is fun to take apart. So like on a Mossberg, you pop that pin out and you just pull the trigger group out. This one not so much, because there's a piece in the trigger group that acts as the ejector, I believe. Yeah, the ejector. Or no, it's a guide to help feed the cartridge into the chamber. That's what it is. The ejector is actually attached to the bottom of the firing pin. But anyway, that's attached to the trigger group. Well, that lines up with the slot in the bolt on the other side. So to take this out, you have to pull the bolt all the way to the rear. You see how it's already starting to come out? And then you have to wiggle it a little bit. There you go. That's your trigger group. Okay? You go to take out your bolt. Very, very similar to a 10-22 and a Marlin in this way. You pull the bolt to the rear, and you're going to reach in with your finger and lift the bolt, and that gets it free of that. Okay, and then you're going to, I like to take my hand, put it over this, because that little spring and guide rod may come flying out. There's the recoil spring. Here's the guide rod. Okay, now we can access the chamber, back barrel. I can take a look at this, see how many parts are damaged, missing, bent, whatever. This firearm, the problem with it, this is a disconnector arm that I took out. Okay, so when you fire the gun, this piece here comes up and pushes the sear forward, allows the trigger, or I'm sorry, the hammer to fall and hit the firing pin, and then it comes back as the bolt comes back forward. There's a leg pushes down, and it allows the sear to reset as the bolt is pushing the hammer back. And all this happens real fast. It took me a little bit to get the mechanics of it figured out. So here's the leg I was talking about. And I don't know if you can see it in there at all because of the focus. There's the sear. Here's the hammer. There's a little leg on that sear that rides on that notch right there. Okay? And those things, they work together. Here is the guide piece that I told you about that fits into the bolt on the opposite side. So these pieces fit in a receiver like this, and this comes up like this and rides right there. Okay? And over here, you can see where this works. Alright? There's a notch right here. When this gets into that notch, it allows it to pop back up and reset the sear. So, as I was putting this back together, it's important to pay attention to detail when you're working on these two. This pin right here is supposed to be flush with the frame for the trigger group. Okay? I did not have it flush at first, and it was hitting this pin and it was digging into the bottom of the bolt. And I ended up having to do it anyway, but that led me to believe that I need to take some material off the top of this transfer arm here. And I'm glad I caught it when I did, because I didn't have to take off as much as I thought I did. And this piece right here is made out of unobtainium, apparently. A little tough for me to find. Which, by the way, I'm going to do a shameless plug for these guys, because they always come through in a pinch, and I love dealing with them. So, Outback Gun Parts in Albany, Indiana. Love y'all, or New Albany, Indiana. I think there's only been one time that I can think of that they haven't had a part that I needed. They specialize in making obsolete parts for old guns that, when I say old, they're probably 30, 40 years old. That's typically when some of these manufacturers stop making aftermarket parts for like your Sears and Roebucks, especially ones that aren't being manufactured anymore. So, to put this back in, it's just to reverse the operation. You're going to get your guide rod back in your spring, and there's a little hole in here up at the very top on the ejection port side that spring fits in. I'm going to do this off camera because I don't want the spring to fly, so you're just going to have to deal with it. You want to make sure that you get the spring and the guide rod into the bolt. You don't want to bend, kink, or otherwise damage that spring. So we got that in there. This notch right here is where this goes. So we're going to pull back on the bolt with our fingers and lift up, put this in place. Okay, that's captured. Okay, now when you go to put this back in, okay, this right here is what throws the shell up to get caught by the bolt. So you need to make sure that it's pushed down in the front, so this horn is sticking up. And then when that is set there, you can lock the hammer to the rear and reset the sear. And all that needs to happen before you can put this in place. So again, we're going to take our thumb and we're going to pull all the way back on the bolt. We're going to put this in kind of like an AK magazine. We're going to go in this way. You kind of got to finagle it in, wiggle it a little bit, get that piece I was telling you about up there in place. And you should be able to slide that forward. Make sure all my parts and pieces are properly oriented. Sometimes you get a pin that slides where it shouldn't. Yep, that was a problem. So, the leg I was telling you about popped up prematurely. I need to put it down. There we go. So the trick there is, when you get that to the point that it feels like it's going to rock in, push it home, okay? Now, we have it right where it needs to be, okay? Then you put your screw back in here. That's going to retain your trigger group. Gently seat it back in place. This is a 22, guys. You don't need to Mongo the screw in place, okay? The chance that using more than approximately, I don't know, 8 to 10 inch-pounds of pressure to hold that screw in place and not have it come out because of the jar from the recoil, pretty low. You don't need to use Loctite. You don't need to use a lot of force. That's a 22. Magazine tube back in. The other thing, it's important. If I try this magazine guide tube thing, take this out with that in, the foot that's on the spring that pushes the ammunition down is going to get hung up in the feed mechanism, and I'm not going to be able to get this out, and I may bend or break that foot. So remember to take the magazine guide tube out. So, once again, if you need a part and you can't find it on eBay, you can't find it on Numeric, which typically Numeric's been pretty good, but here lately they're struggling a little bit, and I think it's just because of COVID and them being in the People's Republic of New York. But there is their information. They're great people. The guy may talk your leg off, but if they don't have the part, you're probably not going to be able to find it. Another good place is a guy named Jack First. You can look him up. He specializes in rare Winchester parts and some other oddball guns. So, hope this has been helpful. Feel free to leave a comment, and love it if you would subscribe. If you have any suggestions or requests, leave them in the comment section, and I will do my best to accommodate you. So, hope you have a good day.